rest. You're going to rest your arm during Chicago Sexy Liberal tomorrow, and then you'll be back for Sexy Liberal LA, October 22nd.
Yes.
You're bringing me out of the bullpen. I appreciate that, Steph.
Someone posted your super hot football picture again yesterday on Twitter. Let's not talk about that. So, oh my God, we're just in a good mood, right? Because it's been a good week for justice. So where do we even start? So this is a legal term, but Judge Dearie has had enough of Donald Trump's bull at this point, it seems. Is that legally, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, what a colossal miscalculation of Donald Trump to recommend Judge Dearie to oversee, the review of the documents he stole from the federal government. Because, the adults are back in the room when it comes to the federal judges that are now presiding, both the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals and in New York, Judge Dearie, that are now presiding over Donald Trump's crimes. And I'll tell you, Donald Trump is in deep trouble. Judge Dearie told him, put up or shut up when it comes to these ridiculous claims that the FBI planted classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. So we are now on a very good track in this litigation.
Well, it is the stuff we all laugh about, but you're right. When this meets the cold, hard day of a courtroom and a judge, how could you declassify stuff that you say the FBI planted? I mean, it's all of it. I mean, just it gets more ridiculous by the day that, I declassified it just by thinking about it. I mean, it's this is what happens when, you meet the law, right, in court. You can't say all the stuff he says on Twitter and whatever his lawyers say on TV, right?
Yeah, and you know what? He may think that momentarily this nonsense plays with his base, but Donald Trump's every word will be admissible against him in court as a statement of a party opponent under the rules of evidence. So part of me says, let him keep talking.
Right. Well, yes, and you said by simply thinking it into declassification, Trump didn't even have to use the cone of silence. It's hard to know what other terms he might throw out. But so let's talk about, you said in reversing Judge Cannon's horrific ruling, the appeals court states that what was obvious to everyone other than Judge Cannon. So tell us what happened on that front.
Yeah, so, usually in my experience, Steph, appellate judges usually go easy on district court judges when they think that the district court judge, like Judge Cannon, made a mistake. They use all these gentle euphemisms to suggest the judge could have come to a different decision. Not the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, including 2 Trump appointees. They slammed Judge Cannon. They said things like, she arguably abused her discretion by even exercising jurisdiction, by even wading into this, this territory where she used her judicial power to tell a co-equal branch of government, the executive branch, the Department of Justice, the FBI, do not investigate Donald Trump's crimes as they pertain to these classified documents. I mean, when appellate courts say, you abused your discretion, you should not have even exercised jurisdiction, that's the appellate court judges basically saying, you are not very good at this judging thing, Aileen Cannon.
So obviously that part, because I mean, how can you not make a case that this is national security, that
Right.
part must go forward, right?
Yeah, and she's apparently a classified documents denier. She said, I don't even know that I believe the Department of Justice and the FBI when they tell me, including in sworn affidavits, that they seized more than 100 classified documents from Donald Trump. So I said, maybe somebody should ask her who she thinks won the presidential election. Is she an election denier as well?
Right. So you also said important new data point. Trump's lawyers refused to tell Special Master Judge Dearie if Trump actually declassified anything because it would hurt their defense to the merits of any subsequent indictment. Hang in there, friends. Indictments are coming. I mean, it says to me, Trump's lawyers know he's going to be indicted, doesn't it?
Yeah, what a tell when they use as a basis to refuse to answer Judge Dearie's question the fact that it would hurt them in defending Donald Trump when he's indicted. Come on now. You don't have to read between the lines there. And I said, this may be the first time I ever agreed with any of Donald Trump's criminal defense attorneys that indictments are coming.
Yeah. Okay, let's turn to Tish James, because that's just fun. You said it's a good day for accountability and the rule of law. First, New York AG James brings a suit against the Trumps for rampant fraud. Then the 11th Circuit reverses Cannon's ruling. Let's the DOJ resume criminal investigation into classified docs. But let's talk about this Tish James thing. I have to say, as much as we sort of knew all this, I mean, Michael Cohen laid it all out and brought receipts to Congress. I think even I was sort of stunned at the breadth and depth of what she laid out yesterday, right? It is such...
not only that, but, she is my hero at this point, because the way she presented it in her press conference, no histrionics, but boy, there were some hard facts that we can all grab hold of and understand. So when she says things like, Donald Trump committed fraud, and it's a crime, by the way, and that's why we're referring it to the U.S. attorneys in Manhattan, the Southern District of New York, for potential prosecution. And that's why we're referring it to the Internal Revenue Service for a criminal investigation into his federal tax fraud. But you said, he did things like claimed in, documents and records that he certified that his apartment has 30,000 square feet when it has less than 11,000 square feet. You know what? It doesn't take an accountant or an engineer to figure out that is criminal when you're making those representations to banks or seeking loans or for insurance purposes. That's flat out fraud. So you know what? She's got the goods. She's got the witnesses who can deliver the goods. And this certainly puts a nail in the coffin of the Trump organization, and it will hold accountable civilly, not criminally, but it will hold accountable Trump, Don Jr., Ivanka, Eric, Alan Weisselberg, and Jeff McConney.
But Bill Barr says they're just children, and that's not fair.
Well, if Bill Barr says it, I guess we should all take it to the bank, because he's never been known to misrepresent anything in his zeal to defend Donald Trump.
Yeah. So much for his rehabilitation tour. So, Glenn, where was sorry, what was the thing you were just talking about? There's so many questions with there's so many things happening at once, right? It's hard to even keep track. So, because we were talking about the Trump lawyers in D.C. court about the January 6th investigation yesterday. And I just loved hearing that someone besides you and I is impatient within the Justice Department. Lisa Monaco apparently is pushing them to, that's what that meeting was about, is about the J6 investigation.
Yeah, let's pick up the pace, because, we've got the boots of the insurrection under control. I will be attending and covering for MSNBC the first seditious conspiracy trial, which kicks off this week, jury selection on Tuesday. So we're making our way through the boots of the insurrection. But for gosh sakes, let's start indicting the suits of the insurrection. I can't understand why we've seen no indictments of treasonous lawyer John Eastman, or, nefarious DOJ lawyer Jeffrey Clark, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Flynn, and the others. Let's start getting after the suits of the insurrection. And I think that's where DOJ is headed next.
How does Sidney Powell get out of, speaking of which, skipping her grand jury appearance in Georgia, which, by the way, that's another whole part of the Georgia thing. The grand jury wants to ask her about an involvement in an incident in South Georgia where video shows people being led into the county elections office to download elections data from voting machines on an election server. State investigators call it criminal behavior. Sidney Powell paid for all of that, and she just doesn't show up. So Sidney Powell, we got a runner, and let's she's slow though. She won't get far.
I see the hound dogs running through, swamps, tracking down the Kraken. I mean, this has all the makings of a holiday of a Hollywood blockbuster.
Isn't someone going to say she won't get far on foot?
Yeah, we got a runner. Yeah, she won't get far. So I suspect they're going to say, oh, there was some confusion about the date, and she'll appear. She didn't want to be running from the Georgia law enforcement authorities that will be assigned to lock her up for failing to appear before the grand jury.
Yes. Well, so Speaking of lawyers, Donald Trump continues to be a prosecutor's dream, right? I mean, this Hannity interview, it's not just laughable, right? It's also, he tried to say, oh, no, we had disclaimers on all those things, and
Yeah.
Michael Cohen said, again, BS. There's no disclaimer to, banks or insurance companies or whatever, right?
Yeah, and first of all, the 11th Circuit took on the declassification nonsense. They said, first of all, there is zero evidence that he declassified anything. And more importantly, the 11th Circuit said declassification is a red herring, because whether he did or he didn't, he still stole the document. So,
Right.
I don't know what audience Donald Trump thinks he's talking to when he says, I can magically think documents declassified and poof, they are declassified. But what I can tell you is the way prosecutors will use that statement in court, those statements that maybe I thunk them declassified is actually an admission that he didn't declassify anything. Because in 2019, Steph, he declassified some things, and he did it in accordance with the rules, procedures, and protocols. Everything got stamped declassified. So he knows how to do it. So these ramblings on Hannity are actually admissible admissions.
Yeah. So tell us what this in effect means, because basically the headline is Trump appointed judge backtracks on her previous ruling after 11th Circuit delivers stinging rebuke, as you've been talking about. But so doesn't that mean that Trump didn't achieve his major objective, which was delay? I mean, they're going forward now, right, with the classified documents.
Yeah, he didn't. He delayed it for a couple of weeks, which is pretty much all he did. But the other thing that's really good that I think we can tease out of this is the 11th Circuit asked him to file his brief responding to the government's assertions on Tuesday. It was a 40-page brief. On Wednesday, the 11th Circuit said, you lose. DOJ, go back to investigating those classified documents. So the federal courts seem to be rising to the moment. They seem to appreciate the urgency of doing everything promptly rather than playing Donald Trump's game of delaying things endlessly, trying to run out the clock.